How do you stop a charging elephant? This is no joke. The answer? You don't. You set it free and give her sanctuary. But there are still elephants touring in circuses in America like Viola. Find out why PETA calls Viola the most desperate elephant in the world on the PETA podcast with Emil Guillermo. Welcome to the PETA podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo, your host for this inside look at animal rights, brought to you by PETA, the largest animal rights organization in the world. On this episode, elephants run amok. Potentially, especially when they're held captive in circuses. Viola has been leased out by Carson and Barnes circuses to a smaller shrine circus, Jordan World, it's called. Viola has lived for more than 50 years as an animal oddity and deprived of her right to live in the wild as a normal elephant. In that time, she has tried to run from the circus at least 4 times. Now PETA has begun a campaign to free the 56-year-old elephant from the continuing cruelty she faces from Carson and Barnes in the Jordan World Circus and other shrine circuses. Here's Debbie Metzler, PETA's managing director of captive wildlife, on Saving Viola on the PETA podcast. Tell me about Viola's life. I mean, she started off in Asia, and she would have had a normal life as an elephant some 56 years ago. But what happened?
So Viola was captured from the forests of Asia. She was torn from her family. They were likely killed in order for her to be captured. And she has lived her life in exploitation ever since.
So we don't know specifically where she came from in Asia. Is she just part of a process where exporters go in there and they go in there and capture the elephants and then bring them to the U.S.?
Yeah, so it's now illegal. It became illegal actually not long after Viola was captured. They literally slaughter the whole family in order to get the babies. But they would capture the babies, bring them over to the U.S., and then sell them to be exploited in circuses or roadside zoos, and that's where they've been ever since.
And so Viola is part of this evil legacy, really, where she has aged in a circus and very few young elephants coming in. She is now what PETA is calling the most desperate elephant in the world?
Yes, so we've consider Viola to be the most desperate elephant in the world because she's actually tried to escape this circus at least 4 times, beginning as far back as 1975, which we have record of her trying to flee from her trainers way back then. And then we also have instances in 2010, 2014, and most recently 2024. In each one of those instances, the government actually cited Carson and Barnes for allowing her to injure herself and endanger the public, because elephants are 10,000 pounds. They can trample you if you get in their way. And that has happened before to trainers, especially. They get underfoot and they can be killed. But the elephants who escaped in those instances, including Viola, were injured, and they also damaged property. So she's desperate to get away, and that's why we're calling her the most desperate elephant in the world.
Now, you mentioned Carson Barnes. They're the circus owners, and this is the irony. They got Viola, and now very few circuses have elephants, but Carson and Barnes, since they own them, they have started this leasing business, and they lease to these sub-circuses that tour the country?
Yeah, so Carson and Barnes is the supplier to several circuses, especially shrine circuses, which a lot of people associate, with the circus, is the Shriners put this on in their communities. And but it's actually, each one is different. There's not a single shrine circus tour. But Carson Barnes leases elephants to those circuses, and then also to the Jordan World Circus, which does have a tour that goes 10 months of the year, and Viola is on the road for that whole time. And so she is owned by Carson Barnes, but she's performing in the Jordan World Circus.
So it's really strange because on one hand, big circuses like Ringling have stopped using elephants, and even Carson and Barnes has, but they continue the cruelty by leasing out to these shrine circuses. And you'd figure that the Shriners, I mean, the shrines have hospitals, they know something about humanity, but apparently not much about animal rights because maybe their fezzes are too tight or something. I don't know. But they still do the elephants. Have you reached out to Jordan World and the Shrine circuses?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We actually have a really robust shrine circus campaign, trying to get specific shrines who have particular history of exploiting several different animals, and then also Shriners International, which is sort of an umbrella group of all of the shrine chapters. We've asked them to adopt a policy. These are guys that just want to live this tradition that they're so hung up on of going to the circus and seeing animals perform, and they just don't care that really what's happening is cruelty is taking center stage. But as you mentioned, Carson and Barnes, they have their own circus tour, which does not have elephants on it. They're only leasing them to these other tours, and I suspect that's because they make more money doing it that way.
Yeah, or to continue a profit center, this unethical, evil, cruel profit center. So, what this campaign that you're heading up now of Jordan World, the circus is putting Viola on display. What is the hope that you're trying to bring attention to? That might change the path for Viola and maybe put her in sanctuary.
Well, obviously, if enough people are protesting and avoiding going to the Jordan World Circus, they're going to have to see the writing on the wall. They're going to have to shift to being animal free, which so many other circuses have done, including Ringling Brothers, which most people associate with the circus. And when they stopped using elephants 10 years ago, a lot of people thought that was the end of elephants in the circuses. Unfortunately, some of these smaller tours continue to use them, but it is dwindling. The number of elephants every single year decreases. And these are all elephants who are elderly. They were all captured from the wild. And I think that most of these exhibitors know that it's only a matter of time. But a lot of them seem to just be wanting to use elephants until their last breath. They just are trying to get as much money out of them as they can.
Going back to calling Viola the most desperate elephant in existence, what has her life been like for 50 years? Describe some of the things that she has to do. Describe her health right now and how what she's enduring as being part of the circus.
Well, as a youngster, she was trained with abuse. We know this. We've seen it. Undercover investigations have found they beat these elephants. And specifically, Carson and Barnes, we have footage of them smacking elephants as hard as they can, jabbing a sharp bullhook, which is this steel tipped stick that resembles a fireplace poker. And they jab that into the elephant's sensitive skin. They yank on them. They use electric prods. They do all of that in training. And then all they have to do later is just have a bullhook present. And the elephants have learned that that comes with pain. And so they obey. So they endured this horrific training as youngsters. And they still, I'm sure, face abuse throughout their lives. And then they're also hauled around in tractor trailers from city to city to city. And when they are not being used in a 3-minute performance, they're penned up in a very small little, usually space that's in the back room of the arena or in a parking lot, which that hard concrete surface is very bad for their joints. And so all of these elephants who are elderly, who are still on the road, including Viola, have all shown signs of like arthritis or other degenerative joint disease, which is no surprise given the life they lead. It's, unyielding, the experience
Yeah.
they have.
But the state of her health it's documented is not good, and yet she still performs on a night-to-night basis.
Yeah, I mean, we've have footage going back years showing that she has chronic foot and leg, ailments. So her feet are chronically swollen. She does bend her knee out frequently, which indicates that that leg might be painful. She's shifting weight around. Um, we've also seen her holding one of her limbs completely straight. Now, elephants don't limp in the same way that you might see if your dog has hurt their leg, or maybe they broke a toenail or something, and they lift their whole leg up and they limp around. Well, dogs are 50 pounds or less,
Yeah. Yeah.
most of them. Um, but an elephant being 10,000 pounds, they can't
Yeah.
just hold their leg up as they walk around. They have to walk on that leg, and so it's hard to notice to a layperson to see when an elephant is lame. But experts have evaluated them and can tell you these elephants have all the signs of arthritis. And honestly, in captivity, the leading cause of death for elephants is foot and leg ailments. Issues that arise from that. They eventually collapse and they can't get up again.
So this is a situation that needs some attention, and yet, I mean, she's had the same trainer for the last 20 years. Do they just take her for granted? She's got her 3 minutes, and then they ignore her, or is she getting the attention she needs, or getting the medical care she needs?
Well, you know, the signs that we've seen, the fact that they do seem to have joint issues. Viola has had toenail issues and frayed cuticles, which, again, elephants are putting their entire weight on their feet. And they're so heavy that their nails need to be really maintained. They need to be filed down. Their cuticles need to be tended to because they can be very susceptible to infections, which can lead to a lot of health issues. And we've seen some issues with her toes. So this is really basic veterinary care that in an accredited facility they would be on top of. And the fact that we're not seeing it done as diligently in the circus is no surprise because they don't prioritize the animal's health.
Yeah.
They
So
use them for rides and performances.
So you talk about or describe her life, and what's the elephant thinking? What is Viola thinking? She's tried to escape in the past, and she probably will try again, huh?
I have no doubt, she's proven over and over that she is desperate to get away from the circus. I think that when the opportunity is there, she'll take it. That to me says that there's still hope for her. She has not had her spirit completely broken. She has not lost all hope. She still wants to be free. And getting her to a sanctuary will give her the peace that she's so desperate to have.
One of the things that this brings to mind is if she's desperate to be free, anytime she performs, is she represents a danger to not just herself, but to the public and anyone around her, right? At the circus.
Absolutely. I think every time, a family goes to the circus, they are putting themselves, their children at risk. And that's because the elephant can go on a rampage. They're absolutely capable of trampling people, trampling through, the structures, the stands, all of that. And one of the escapes that Viola participated in, she bent the door to the venue, just completely bent it in her escape, and she crushed a couple of vehicles as well, just running through the parking lot.
It's like she was trying to tell us something, right? I mean, really, I mean, this is the thing when people go see these circuses and they know that Ringling has stopped using elephants, and even Carson Barnes has, but these smaller circuses have not. When people go to these circuses, aren't they a little surprised that they're still using elephants? And aren't they kind of amazed and, find it kind of abhorrent that the elephants are still being cruelly treated like this?
Yeah, so PETA has been doing demonstrations outside the Jordan World Circus because of raising attention for Viola. And we've had conversations with folks who they see our eye-catching displays, this 20-foot inflatable elephant, can't miss it. And then people are drawn to our signs that say, free Viola, she's beaten and chained for the circus. And they've come over and said, wait, I didn't think there were elephants in the circus anymore. Because Ringling Brothers was the biggest. They even knew it. They called themselves the greatest show. And that's just people know Ringling. And when they stopped using elephants, a lot of people thought that was the end of elephants in the circus. Unfortunately, there's these smaller circuses that go to really rural areas, and they tap into this pocket of people who aren't as tuned in with the big picture and who are willing to go see this and participate in that tradition, so-called tradition. But obviously that's no excuse for cruelty.
But some people do come to you and say, I thought this was over. I thought the battle the war had been won over the use of elephants in circuses.
Yeah, and we've even seen people who change their minds. They learn that and they leave. They bought the ticket, so unfortunately they did support the circus, but when they see that they're going to have elephants, they turn around and leave. We've seen that happen. We've also seen people who, seem to be kind of on the fence, but they keep it in the back of their mind. They go into the circus and they come out and they say, you were right. And we see comments on social media where people say the elephants looked sad. It was a pathetic act. They come out for 3 minutes. They spin around on some pedestals. One of the elephants holds up a trainer on her trunk and spins around in a circle. And then they leave the ring. And that is, how is that entertainment? I think even the people who don't understand the welfare issues, just on the face value of seeing that, what was the point? And a lot of people see it as pathetic. I think the reason they're not even doing more tricks than that and they're not having a longer performance is because these elephants are so old and elderly, they can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
They are being worked to death.
Yeah, what gets me is that Ringling Brothers and Carson and Barnes, the bigger circuses, have gotten the point. They still want to make money, and this is a way that they can look like they're doing the good thing, but they're really doing the bad thing by leasing out these elephants. What can Carson and Barnes, what can Ringling Brothers do to to stop what these smaller circuses are doing? Can they do anything?
Well, I think Ringling Brothers has done a lot on raising, getting press, raising awareness on the fact that their circus is animal free. They've made a big deal about that. And the comeback was very purposeful that they were animal free. They even had a robotic dog. They made an effort to make that clear and to sort of start a new chapter. And they made statements. But if Carson Barnes and these other small circuses don't want to listen to Ringling, I don't know that they can really be swayed. What will sway them are the audiences. So if you stop buying a circus ticket and if you tell your friends not to, they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to change their model to succeed. And I think a lot of them do see the writing on the wall, but they're just trying to hold on to that source of income for as long as they can.
And I think people can change or will change if they only develop that empathy for these elephants like Viola. I mean, just to think about what she has been deprived of in the last 50 years. I mean, it's pretty incredible. I mean, she lives essentially alone or with a small group of elephants, a handful of elephants. That's certainly unnatural.
Yes. So she's on the road for most of the year. And in that time, she's only with one other elephant. And it's been that way for several years now. They do have a home site in Hugo, Oklahoma, where there are 18 elephants total. We don't know what the socialization is like there, but they do chain them in the barn. It's completely unnatural. And Viola and the other elephants really deserve to be moved to a sanctuary where they can have a more natural opportunity to socialize with groups as they would have done in the wild if they'd been able to live a natural life.
And they miss out on so much when you think about it. They miss out on the companionship with other elephants. They miss out on breeding or the whole idea of the cycle of motherhood and family life. I mean, that's Viola did not get to experience that.
No, she was captured when she was an infant. She never had the experience of growing up with her mother and her aunts and in a multi-generational herd. So in the wild, it's mostly matriarchal herds where mothers and their babies of varying ages all grow up together. And then once the males reach a certain age, they start to wander off and they go to other groups to
Yeah.
breed. So they are more, transient. But these female herds, which all of the elephants currently in the circus are elderly females. They've never had a natural life. They have never been able to live the way they should have in the wild.
And so you mentioned earlier that the fact that Viola goes amok, the fact that she goes on an occasional rampage in the decades that she's been held in captivity shows that she's still resilient and still wants her freedom.
Absolutely. I think that it's an indication that she still just wants to be free. And hopefully we can make that happen for her. I do think it's makes her so desperate to get away, but also at the same time means they haven't completely broken her spirit. And so I feel like there is hope for her still.
And what can people do to uh, join in the campaign to save Viola?
So people can go to PETA.org/Viola, capital V, and be able to call on Carson and Barnes, who owns her, to retire her and the other elephants to reputable sanctuary. That's one thing you can do easily, and share that URL with all your friends and family. And it's just a couple of clicks. You can send that letter. And then you can also tell your friends not to go to the circus if they are using elephants. There are a number of circuses that have stopped using elephants. There's even a few shrine circuses that have said, we're not going to do that anymore. It's a dying industry. They realize it.
Yeah, and people can also follow the PETA protest as it goes along on the tours with your 20-foot elephant.
Yes, absolutely. If you see a circus in town, you can go just pick up a sign with the PETA protesters, and join in educating other people. That's something that for as long as I've been in the animal rights field, the reason I got into it was because I learned what animals were going through, and I felt this responsibility to tell other people. And that's what I have spent my whole career doing. But it's very easy for anyone. You're just driving by, go ahead and join in, hold up a sign.
Yeah, and what's that website that people can go to get an instant, to participate in the action alerts to the Carson and Barnes and other circuses?
It's PETA.org/Viola, capital VIOLA.
Great. And think of Viola, 50 some years in captivity.
Yes, she's at least 56 years old, and she's been in the circus with especially this particular exhibitor. We have record since at least 1975, possibly even earlier than that. So she's been with them over 50 years.
And what's the lifespan of a typical adult or typical female elephant?
In the wild, Asian elephants live to be, late 60s, early 70s. So she is geriatric. She's essentially, it's like taking your grandmother, forcing them to work, taking them city to city, keeping them in a box, and then making them go out and spin around in circles for people. No one would want their grandmother to be forced to do that. I think everyone can relate and say it's time for them to be retired.
Debbie Metzler, thank you very much for being part of the PETA podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Debbie Metzler, PETA's managing director of captive wildlife, on saving Viola, named by PETA as the most desperate elephant in the world. I mean, imagine, she's been held for 56 years in a circus. And circuses, the biggest ones, are going animal free, and it's these little circuses like the Jordan World Circus and these shrine circuses that are continuing this cruelty. You can do something about it. You really can't. Well, first, don't buy a ticket to these little circuses that come to your town, but take action. Go to PETA.org, find out how you can send a note to Carson and Barnes, to Jordan World, and find out where they are so you can go and hold up a sign and tell others to not patronize these cruelty circuses that continue. You think Ringling has ended it all. They haven't. Not yet. They should be the example for the Carson and Barneses in the world, but they're not. You can do something about it. Go to PETA.org. And that's our show for today. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to send a link of this show to your friends. Tell them you like the PETA podcast. Contact us at PETA.org. See me at AMOK.com. Once again, thank you for listening. Check out all our episodes on your favorite podcast app where you can subscribe to, as well as rate and review this show. It helps get the word out about the issues you care about. Our music, that music, with Neil on guitar, provided by CarbonWorks. Check them out on YouTube. And join us again next time for more insight into animal rights and the fight for a cruelty-free world on the PETA Podcast. If you're listening as this is going out this week, that Jordan World Circus is out there in Tulsa. Look for the PETA protest there. Till next time, I'm Emil Guillermo.